We're going to go ahead and we'll come back to order. We adjourned. We didn't adjourn. We recessed from this morning's workshop. We will go to the workshop at 1 o'clock. Today is still Monday, April the 18th. It's now 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and this is a presentation from Motorola regarding their proposed communication system. And if you would, I know Ben and John, I can't pronounce Ben's last name.
Zotica. Common spelling.
Yeah. But if you would go ahead and introduce your team, and we're ready to kick it off.
All right. My name is Ben Zotica. I'm an area sales manager with Motorola Solutions based in Dripping Springs.
John Wells, based out of Marion, Texas, and I'm a senior account manager at Motorola. I've been with us about 19 months, and prior to law enforcement to that, 20 years with the Broncos Police.
Name is Phil Wynn with Motorola. They're system engineers, been with the company for about 12 years now.
Okay. Ben, the floor is yours.
All right. I've been with Motorola for about 15 and a half years. Previous life was 20 years law enforcement down in Fort Bend County, Texas, just on the west side of Houston. Glad to be here with you guys today. Thank you all very much for the time. We greatly appreciate, and we're going to go through the presentation today. This is interactive. Please stop us and ask any questions that you have along the way. Things that I can't answer from a sales perspective, we have Phil here to answer from any technical questions that may arise. We'll go ahead and get started. Go to the next slide, please. And the next one. All right. The next one. Great. Little background, Motorola Solutions, we're the world's leader in production and deployment of mission-critical communications technology. We've been doing this for over 90 years, and we've been a partner with Kerr County since 2014. Motorola Solutions has built 36 statewide systems. We built 48 of the 50 networks serving the nation's largest municipalities, and we've deployed over 800 P25 radio systems in North America alone. Over 200 of those were our Phase 2 TMA systems. The proposal that we're presenting to you guys today, and that we'll be providing the full proposal on, interfaces into the Gators network. That's the Greater Austin Travis County Regional Radio System. It is a state-of-the-art, most sophisticated Astro P25 network that covers a large portion of Central Texas, and is designed and maintained to support public safety and first responders across the state. Next slide, please. All right, so in regards to the specific proposal for Kerr County, what we're doing today, you have a 4-site, 2-channel VHF conventional simulcast system. What we're proposing is to take the existing 4 sites, add 2 channels to them, make them 4-channel. We're going to trunk them, put them into a trunking system, and we're going to make it all simulcast like it is today. In addition to that, we're adding 5 Motorola MCC 7500E dispatch consoles. 4 of those consoles will reside at the Sheriff's Office. One of them will be a remote console, which will have the ability to be deployed during specific incidents. And in addition, we've included a upgraded and new IP logger for voice recording. There's a new microwave link that will be installed between Smoky Mountain and the Sheriff's Office. You notice we put optional in there. The pricing currently includes that link, but that link can be removed if a fiber line can be run between the SO and that site. Basically taking that microwave link out and replacing it with just a fiber link. There is a cost savings associated with that. Like I said, we have the price built in for the microwave. If through negotiations y'all decide it's better to put a fiber link in, we can remove that and it will reduce the cost. In addition, we're refreshing 243 of the law enforcement and fire subscribers. That's the portables and mobile radios, which will all be replaced with multi-band radios. Any questions so far? Good. All right, next slide, please. All right, in regards to the RF sites, today there's the Granada site, Mountain Home, Smoky Mountain, and Comfort sites. we're using those 4 existing sites to upgrade and build out your system. The network equipment will have the latest hardware and software. We're going to replace your conventional simulcast prime site with the latest virtualized trunking simulcast prime site. We're going to expand from a 2-channel to a 4-channel, keeping it all VHF. We have to upgrade expand the combiner system to accommodate the channel expansion, and we will upgrade the software at all the base stations from digital conventional to simulcast trunking. Additionally, we're upgrading each of the 4 sites to an MPLS network on the existing microwave.
EPLS again is what?
Multi-protocol
Layer switching.
Okay.
Next slide, please. To continue with the upgrades, there's going to be a new MSB, a Motorola shelter building at the comfort site. It's a 12 foot by 10 foot weatherproof shelter, prefab concrete that'll be shipped in and dropped out on the site. It'll house the additional equipment that we're going to be putting in it. It comes with a UPS, it comes with a generator, and all electrical, and it'll be set up as one of your additional sites, like to match the others. We're going to connect all the sites to the Gators network through a fiber connection that'll go from Smoky Mountain to the core, the Gators core, Zone 2 core, which resides in Bear County at Bear Metro 911. So today, the Gator system has 2 cores. Yes, sir.
Say that again. I want to make sure before I ask my question. It's going from or to the Gator system through fiber?
Yes, sir.
I go back to my question. I think I might have asked this before. Fiber gets cut here, and we've had problems with fiber getting cut, and it's going to continue to be cut. If we're relying on fiber, how does that get solved?
So what we try to do is we recommend 2 separate fiber runs, okay, from two different providers. That way, if one gets cut, the other one's. We try to build as much redundancy into our systems as we can.
So we're still relying on the fiber providers.
That is correct.
And we've had both cut at the same time. We haven't done this thing.
So if you lose connection to the core, your sites still function, okay? Nothing changes as far as their communications ability. What will happen is the dispatchers, their consoles will rely on RF backup. So there will be radios mounted in the back room at the sheriff's office that the dispatchers will switch to. Instead of being wirelined into the core to communicate with their folks, they'll be relying on the RF communications to do it. The sites themselves will all still remain up and still be able to talk back.
Thank you.
Is it a microwave? I just got here late. You're talking about RF. Are you microwaving it?
The sites are microwave together.
Okay.
Okay. From Smoky Mountain, which is the prime site for the simulcast system, there'll be a fiber connection to the Gators core. That is not a microwave link. That is a fiber link.
Okay. So then, you said the RF link is going to remain static. It's static. Yes.
Correct.
Is that what I just heard? So you don't have anything going to that. So it doesn't matter if something gets cut.
It does matter. Okay.
Okay.
Because,
Well, how does it matter?
okay. So I'm gonna ask our engineer. Can I explain this?
So
Yeah,
just
oh, sorry.
Phil with the Motorola system engineer. In the trunking system, you have a zone controller who processes all the calls and decides what resource to provide, or what, in this case, what channel availability. So when you get cut off from the core, you lose the zone controller. You still have the site controller at the site that delegates the site, but what you lose is the IP tunneling from your dispatch to talk through those sites directly through wireline, so then it communicates to the wireless, as Ben mentioned earlier.
So that is point to point, right? So for example,
channels, yeah.
from where's your origination point? You've got
From-
all these different emergency systems here, so if you lose your trunking, then you've got, and you're relying on radio signal, then
You're
you got a
reverting back.
bunch of different origination points.
You're reverting back to almost a conventional style system from your dispatch to your trunking side or your
That's what I
sites.
thought I was hearing. Thank you.
But there is a microwave link option.
They've got that put in the system, it sounds like. If you have a microwave link in the system and trunking, then there's still a fail point.
So every system, without having dual redundant pass-through, is always going to have a failure point, right? So what we try to do in our networks is we try to create as few as we possibly can. Okay, so in simulcast, the way your system is the core sees all 4 of your sites as one site. Okay, the site controller where your prime site is the one that's deciding which traffic goes to which site. Okay, so when you lose that connection to the core, those sites still stay up, and then you still have the ability to communicate with them. The biggest thing that you lose is the dispatcher's ability on the direct line into the core. They now have to communicate over a radio that's mounted in the back room with an antenna on the roof at the sheriff's office. Okay, because of the close proximity to Smoky Mountain, the prime site it's a little bit better than if they were way far away from it. So the communication, again, is it degraded? Yes. Is it gone? Absolutely not.
So the backup is basically the old system,
It's
the current system.
I wouldn't say they're not going to conventional.
No, yeah.
So if the backup is not the old system, what is the difference for the backup you're proposing?
So when you lose connectivity to the core and the sites go in, the sites are going to go into site trunking. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, the way you're. Can you rephrase your question again?
Well, if what I think I'm hearing is that if there's a problem with the new trunking system, it basically refers to the old system. And then he said no. So what is the difference then in what we have now versus what would be the backup in the future with your system?
Well, yeah. So the way when you go back and revert, it is similar to how you operate today.
So what would be different then
What would be different?
than how we operate today?
In
If
your
we're not-
redundant
if
state
the old-
or
if
in
today's system is not the fallback, what would be? Is that easier to understand?
If you lose the core and the sites go into site trunking,
Yeah.
okay? You're on a talk group.
Yeah.
You're on a talk group. You're assigned to a site. You're still transmitting on that talk group over a frequency at that point
Yeah.
until that link is reestablished.
I mean, yeah. So you're operating how you are today in their backup mode. But there is also another. Well, yeah. That's you're operating in your backup mode.
Well, how do I get the gravy on my potatoes? That's what I'm asking. Do you follow what I'm saying? You're telling me I get gravy on my potatoes. What is the gravy?
Trunking.
Trunking is out now. We've dispensed with it. It's broken. So then what is the backup?
The way today is we just operate through those conventional radios that are tied to your consoles.
Okay, meaning the system we currently have. Okay, that's what
In a sense, yeah.
I'd asked. So we would revert to what we have now.
Yeah.
Okay. No gravy.
But that's only that both evolve the internet.
I get it, but you know what? These last 2 storms we've gone through taught us a lot. You can be without anything and you're wondering what to do and you're twiddling your thumbs. And so I'd like to know what would happen if 3 of the towers fell down. We have to.
Yeah, I mean,
You have to punt.
no, I understand. When you start talking about, and we're talking specifically about losing that link between the Gators core and your prime site.
Sure.
When you start losing sites because of storm damage,
Ice.
Or ice damage, stuff like that, that creates a whole different scenario. When you have a complete site that's down, if you still have that link, then in simulcast, the other ones will pick up, and depending on where you are, if you can affiliate with another site, you automatically switch over to that site.
That's what the trunking does, it reroutes things.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to put the building in, connect all the sites to Gators. The county is responsible for providing that Ethernet connection between the prime site and the Gators core, as we mentioned. Typically, we recommend 2 diverse links for that purpose. So you have the dual links going. If one gets cut, you still have the other one, and vice versa. If you get both of them cut, then you have that scenario we talked about. We're going to reuse the existing antennas and microwave backhaul at the yard sites. All lines will be swept, and we'll make sure they're working accordingly, and we'll address any issues with antenna issues or coax line that we would find during the sweeps. We're going to reuse existing shelter space and an electrical capacity at Granada, Mountain Home, and Smoky Mountain. Okay, next slide. Here's a quick diagram. Phil, you want to come up and explain, just walk through the diagram so it makes sense to them?
Yeah. So we're still reusing the four existing RF sites. Your Legion site is still your microwave relay, so that's all existing. What we're doing is we're upgrading and expanding those 4 RF sites. And then if you can see the Gators core, those are the 2 customer, the recommended 2 fiber link that we're recommending just for redundancy, reliability. There's a link to the Kerr County Sheriff's Office with the 4 ops. Today we have a microwave built into it. If we need to get away with it through fiber, then we can reduce the cost on that. We built a remote console topology here so that we can put the remote out in a command vehicle or anywhere remote that we need to. And that's going to require like a customer provided backhaul LT connection to get back to the dispatch site. Any questions?
The backhaul, the customer provided backhaul.
Right.
Explain that to me, please.
Which one?
What are we going to be required? What would we be required to do?
So
And some of them are not marked clearly as to what it is. It looks like it's a backhaul here, but this looks like it's just a signal.
Yeah, so that was the optional when we originally started to talk about that. Today we built a microwave link so that it's built into the project at the price we'll present later. But we can also do away with that link or the cost of that link through a fiber if you guys provide some fiber connectivity. Or we can have 2 links for additional redundancy as well. As far as the remote op, we discussed providing an LT connection for remote usage of the console dispatch.
That's just to maintain a LAN connection or what?
Yeah.
Okay. So, we already have a lot of the microwave stuff in the county. We
Correct.
That's what you've included.
Correct, and that's in the green line.
That's our equipment we already have.
Yes.
Correct.
All right.
And the red dotted lines are showing the fiber connections. And as we mentioned before, the one between the Kerr County Sheriff's Office and Smoky Mountain, we do have a microwave already priced into this. We can keep it, or if y'all decide you want to put a fiber line, we'll reduce that amount and use the fiber. Or we do both, and you have the redundancy there. Next slide. Okay, we ran 2 maps here. The first one you're going to see is the mobile round trip. This is a mobile radio that's in the vehicle, mounted in the vehicle with an external antenna. Again, using your 4 existing sites that you have today. The purpose of this is the coverage that the county is seeing today. And by doing this, we're able to reduce the number of sites that y'all are paying leases on today. There's a total of 7 sites, I believe, that you guys are paying leases on. We're going to be able to remove 3 of those because we're using just these 4 sites. Those other 3 sites, I believe, are at fire departments or in fire department areas that they use for their communications. By moving to this trunking system, we're able to bring the fire departments onto this system and share these sites as opposed to having their own with their own conventional frequency line.
Any of those guys have to have relay stations? No.
No, this is
Great
the coverage. This is the coverage we're providing today at the 4 sites. Next slide, please. This is the portable round trip coverage. One thing to note on here, Motorola, we design our maps we try to be as cautious as possible when we do our maps. So we run them at a 95% guaranteed coverage. What that means is, what you're seeing here when you look at this map and you go, wow, that's a lot of white space in those areas. That doesn't mean there's not coverage there. What we're guaranteeing is 95%. So if through running our tool, using our tool to run these maps, if it's at 94.6, it's going to show white. It's not going to show coverage. This is 95% guarantee, and that's what we're signing up for, which is a public safety standard.
It looks realistic.
Yes. All right. So we wanted to give you guys a representation of the Gators regional coverage, what we have today. To the right of this, in the green and yellow, orange colored area, that is the Austin area Gators network. In addition to that, everything to the left of it, down along the border, all the way down to the valley, these are all users that are tied into the Gators network today, just like you guys would be. A couple that you don't see on here is Comal County. They're coming on board. We're putting in a VHF trunking system in Comal County as well. Harlandale ISD down in San Antonio, they're putting in a site, potentially adding an additional site. And there are some other TxDOT and DPS sites coming in that are going to be added to this map in the future. Any questions? All right, next slide. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John, and he's going to pick up the dispatch center and the subscribers.
All right. Again, John Wells, I'm Senior Account Manager for Motorola. I handle all the accounts in this CapCog, ACOG region, as well as the Middle Rio Grande and South Texas Development Council. So I'm your guys' direct account manager, direct contact for anything Motorola. So again, to go over the dispatch design in a little more in depth than we did earlier. We got the 5 MCC 7500 dispatch consoles, 7500E, which is our latest and greatest console that we offer. 4 of those consoles are in dispatch, as actually, in the dispatch furniture, dispatch center. Y'all have 3 now, so the plan is to actually add an additional console at the sheriff's request. It gives him more manpower capacity for his dispatch center. And then, of course, we have that, like we talked about earlier, the one remote, which gives you the option to either set it up in the EOC when needed, the command trailer the sheriff's office has, anywhere as long as we have that LTE connection back into the radio system. So, and that can be done with a cradle point, anything like that gives us an LTE signal. So, again, new networking equipment goes in the racks and the equipment room, which is adjacent to the dispatch center. So everything that's in the racks there would be coming out and replaced with all brand new up-to-date stuff. We would do 5 Apex Consulate radios that would all have 7800 capability, VHF and UHF, so you have true multi-band interoperability. And again, those are those backup resources that would be used in case we lose that connectivity back to the Gators core. The console simply switches over to that, and then you become an RF. The console becomes a giant mobile radio that they're transmitting, just like the officers and the firefighters in the field are doing. So. The new IP logger, which is going to be your voice recorder, is included in that. So it gives us full recording system. It's through NICE, which is one of the best companies that's out there for recording. So it gives you a chance to record everything that's going in, or you choose what's recorded. So, for your dispatch resource to go back and listen, add to your case logs, things like that at a later time. So. There's 3 additional radios that are tied into that, Apex 1500s, with their own individual antenna system, and as well as it records all of the 5 consulates that are listed above. So we are including dispatch supervisor training on the consoles, as well as the NICE system on how to use it, and training for the users as well. So they'll be completely trained before we do the switch over and make that seamless, since it's a new console system. So. And again, radio management is the programming portion of the radios. So there was a request to be able to handle that in-house so that we don't have, the county no longer has to contract out with another entity and pay those bills to have things programmed. So we're including radio management hosted on a server with training up to 3 users on how to use it, and then 1 person to learn how to program it, to program the radios. The programming involves getting a system key from the Gators core from the city of Austin.
And it's encrypted.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are including encryption in the radios itself. So, but once we get that, there's a background check involved and some stuff through the city of Austin that will help out with. But that gives you your own system key to be able to program the radios here internally within the county. So, and again, we got a microwave link from KCSO for the backhaul that goes up to the prime site there at Smoky Mountain. So, next slide. Any questions on that? And again, like we had the larger diagram earlier, this is more of an in-depth breakdown diagram just to kind of go over how the consoles are connected in. You can see there's a series of switches and routers connected to your 4 consoles that are actually in the furniture there at dispatch. In the back room, there'll be a proxy server, and that's what the remote console uses to connect back in to the system when you're outside the building.
Now, you're showing in the diagram 2 switchers, 2 routers. Is that all that is required? Those things only have about 8 channels on them.
For
The second line there, after you get past
the site routers and site switches for LAN is built as a redundant.
So one's in use and one's backup, or you're not going to use
Both.
of
They're
them?
actually both in use.
So there's no redundancy on there.
Those are built as redundant routers and switch.
Where's the main router?
Those are the main site routers and switch.
How are they the main router and the redundant?
The way that the control gets sent, it gets sent through both paths down through each router back to the port. That's how you get the site signal back.
So you got 2 units and that's all for this whole system? 2 routers, 2 switchers?
Just for the console site.
Okay, so you have some others elsewhere.
Right. For each at the RF site, they had their own routers and switch.
This is for the consoles on the dispatch equipment.
How many total will be in the system?
So you got two router, 2 switch per site, 4 sites, plus the dispatch, so about 10.
2 at each site.
Yeah.
These have you said the routers and their backup. Is there 2 hard drives in these things or what?
The routers.
Yeah, I mean, how is it both if it's the router and it's the backup? I hadn't seen one of those.
The design for the routing is not it's redundant, so it gets sent through different so sometimes it gets keyed, it gets sent through path 1 and then it gets sent through path 2, so they don't go all the way always redundant to each other. But if there's a failure, then one router will take over the whole call processing.
Okay. So, but they're both online at all times?
Right.
So what I'm really meaning is physically, if one of them fries and it's dead, then everything goes to the one router?
Right.
But they're both in use all the time?
You'll lose some capacity when one site goes down, and you'll still be operational on the other half that we configured them for.
And they split the workload, right, Phil, until one fails. And then it all goes on to one.
And does the switchers recognize the IPs? Is that what these switchers are for?
Right, it's for the LAN. For
Right,
IP,
they'll
all
recognize
the,
all the different IPs?
right.
Okay.
Okay, so moving down below the switches, then you've got your consolettes, which again, like we described earlier, is your backup radio resources. Of course, you've got a site controller, and then there at the bottom, you've got another terminal that runs your logger, which again is the recording system for dispatch. Records all that radio traffic for posterity, open records, things like that for you, as well as investigations and the dispatchers going back and being able to listen to what, if they happen to miss something, there's the option for them to go back and listen, to what the radio traffic was.
And that's analog? It says it's analog.
So it's IP and M.
Yeah, both.
Belt and suspenders.
It's IP and analog. So any talk group and any channel that's writing on the Astro trunking system will be recorded through IP. The 8 analog resources that we built into the dispatch site gets recorded as well as either for redundancy of the IP traffic, or if there's any resources that's not on the trunking system that can be configured on those radios.
So the IP tells you where the call came from, and you're gonna record the call.
Through IP.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, next slide. Okay, so the next slide, we're going to talk about the portable radio replacement, which Ben kind of mentioned. Yes, sir, we've got some examples of our radios up there, kind of on the front vestibule there. So to get more details, so for the sheriff's office, we're talking specifically about the Apex 8000 portable radio, which you've got some of those right there in front of you. These are the radios that the officers and firefighters carry with them on their hip. Sheriff's office is getting a quantity of 60. And again, they're all configured to be multi-band. They'll have 7,800 capability as well as VHF. So that gives you your interoperability with some of the surrounding counties that are on 7,800, as well as with the current City of Kerrville's plan to go 7,800 with their site. So you'll have full interoperability there. Fire department's getting a quantity of 43. The difference in the fire department is they're getting the XE model, which is the green one that's up there, which is our fire-specific radio. So that one's built specifically with fire service in mind, larger knobs, larger buttons, things like that when they're using gloves. It's got some of the heat resistant capabilities, when they're wearing and going into a fire, et cetera. So that's the difference in their radios. That's what you see the XE there after the model number. So again, same thing, VHF, 7,800 megahertz. And again, it's just a ruggedized version of the black radio. So some of the features, a 5-year protection plan, so the radio is covered for 5 years. Anything that needs to be repaired, fixed on it, you contact Motorola, we send you a FedEx label, you send it in, it gets repaired. You have a new radio sent to you, usually sometimes overnight, just kind of depends on availability and what's wrong with it. But they are encryption enabled. Again, speaking with the sheriff, that is something they are headed towards as far as being able to encrypt the radios. Encryption basically keeps folks from being able to scan and listen to what's going on. Gives you a safety and security as far as your radio traffic. So without a very specific, very expensive type, instrument that can read that encryption, nobody's going to be able to listen in on what the sheriff is transmitting or his staff is transmitting. Sure. And the same thing with radio authentication. So radio authentication is just another level of security on the radios. Every time that radio keys up, the system basically almost instantaneously recognizes whether it's an authorized radio based on a key that's in each radio individually. So in today's day and age, you've got folks out there that can clone radios. They'll steal a radio, they'll clone what's inside of it and create copies so that they can spy and listen in on what's going on. The radio authentication prevents that from happening. So. Of course, accessories, we've got spare batteries included, single unit chargers. Every unit has a charger that the staff can take home with them and charge it there at the house. The RSM is the radio, the speaker mic, remote speaker mic, which is the post officers wear on their shoulder, is included as well as the belt loop carry, capability.
There's, am I correct, there's no monthly fee as far as for maintenance or anything like that?
No, sir. No, sir. That 5-year protection is in the cost of the radio itself when we quote it, and it's covered like that for 5 years. After 5 years, you can contact us in year 5 and before it's up, and we can certainly quote what it would do another year by year, up to 5 years. We have some customers that do that. Some are already looking at replacing at the 5-year point, so they don't extend that. But we do have some that will ask, hey, how much does it cost to cover our radios for another year or two, however needed, and we can certainly quote that for you. So,
Can you give me a ballpark? I'm not going to hold you to it, but what would something like that look like as of right now?
The 5-year cost right now is what, $300?
Yeah, the 5-year cost embedded in the radio is like $300-something for the full 5 years. When you get into year 6, we don't really, like you said, it's kind of hard to determine.
I know.
Kind of hard to determine what that is, but some of the stuff that we're quoting right now, on the XEs and the 8000s is, I want to say it's like $120 a year, $140 a year today. But who knows what's going to be like in year 6.
I know. I don't agree like that.
So, and the only thing that doesn't cover is accidental damage. And I'm not saying these radios can't be destroyed, because honestly, you give something to a fireman, they're going to have to destroy it. But I've seen these radios, one of our representatives carries one of those yellow ones around with him. It was actually run over by the dual tires of a pumper truck. And it looks like a boomerang. And he fires it up and talks on the system whenever he's out doing demonstrations. So I've seen them. Again, working in New Braunfels, we went to these radios because of their waterproof capability. Our river operations in the summer, we had carried a different brand before. We lost 3 or 4 of them per summer because we got officers out there working in the river, on the river, in boats, things like that, with all the tubing that goes on. And as soon as one gets wet or somebody falls in the water, or you jump in to save a kid or something like that, the radio gets fried. I mean, I've seen these. We had an officer one year dropped his to the bottom of the river about 10 feet. We had to get a local scuba diver to come out, and it was about 3 hours went by. He brings the radio up, took the battery out, shook the water out, plugged it in. Hey, Sarge, I found my radio at work just fine. Been on the bottom of the river for 3 hours. So, again, very rugged. And you can see there, rugged, robust, reliable design. Again, drop resistant. We've thrown these off of 60-foot fire training tower, tall concrete that survives that fall. The latch on the battery presents that shock from causing the battery to reset, so the battery stays seated, so you don't have to worry about that if it happens. So, yes, sir. Sure.
Our radio is like 15 to 20 years old. What is the replacement you mentioned on these normally? When did you start looking at replacing?
7 to 10 years.
Yeah, 7 to 10 years we recommend.
And it's not about the durability of the radio. It's about the technology in the radio. This isn't a radio. It's a computer transmitting voice. So usually the technology is passing the radio by. So we recommend that if most agencies in year 7 start looking at a replacement cycle.
Do we have something to go longer than that? Sure, absolutely.
These are exclusively VIOP. They're not analog at all.
No, these are all digital. They can work in analog mode, but
Okay.
most of the systems today are converting to digital. So digital is the primary, but they do 36 and 9600 volt. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So for firefighters that aren't line officers or in a vehicle, I've got an XTS 1500.
Yes.
Will it communicate with these new?
That is a VHF only radio. So if it's a trunking radio, yes. If that's a conventional only radio, it'll only transmit on that. So they would have to switch over to a conventional only, leave the trunk to go to a conventional to talk to you. And the XTS, XTL series radios that we started manufacturing in 2000 are end of life. They're no longer supported. We can't even get them repaired anymore. Most of them are coming back on repair.
This is what most of us have.
I understand. That's why we have a replacement plan.
Yeah. And the last thing there is to hear and be heard more clearly. So these Apex 8000s come standard with we call it adaptive audio engine built in. And so essentially it's noise canceling technology. And we have some different training videos out there. Actually, you can find them on our Motorola YouTube channel. But there's demonstrating at a firing range, and what they do is they're videoing the officer. You can see him talking on the radio. The officer shooting behind him in the background. You can't hear, and then they switch over to what's being heard, like if you were on a different location, and you don't hear any of the gunfire in the background. You just simply hear the noise. We have another one, an officer standing on the tarmac of a airport, and there's a 737 coming in behind him. And of course, all you hear is jet engine when they're filming live right there on, but then they switch over to what can be heard on the other end, and you don't hear any of that noise. The voice is a little bit muffled because of the noise canceling, but it's still perfectly clear on being able to hear what's going on. So whether it's the canine barking in the car behind you, which the canine officers deal with constantly in dispatchers, it drives them crazy, but that all gets taken out when talking on this with that adaptive audio engine that we have. So it gives you truly the clearest environment you have. Works really good on interstate traffic, like guys working out I-10, sheriff's interdiction unit, things like that, or working traffic. Not going to have that noise from the big trucks going by. So any questions about the portable radios? All right, next slide. So moving on, this is your mobile radio replacement. So these are the radios that are going to be in the cars. So again, Sheriff's Office, we've got a quantity of 50. Those are Apex 8500. Again, multi-band, got VHF and 7800. Again, we've got them set up as dual band. Just knowing that for some reason, if you ever have to have, UHF capability, that's a possibility as well. But there's not a lot that use UHF anymore. But that radio is capable of that to give you a full, actually quad band. We call it tri-band, but with 7800 both, you actually have a quad band radio. So, doing the E5 control head, which is the black one you see there at the bottom, which is pretty standard for our law enforcement. The fire department, we're doing 90 Apex 8500s, which replaces all their ones in the vehicles. Again, same thing, VHF 7800 on those radios. Doing the O2 control head with them, which is a little more popular with the fire service. It's got a few larger buttons and knobs, and a little more ruggedized for being in the trucks if they get wet or something like that. So, again, the same 5-year protection plan as we get on the portable radios is included. Also got the encryption, also got the radio authentication. So it's got the same security levels as what your portable radios have. Water-resistant palm microphone and speakers. So get something spilled on it while it's in the car. If it's in a fire truck and accidentally gets wet, something like that, or it's like on a pumper and mounted at the back where the pump station is. If it gets wet or rained on, it's not going to damage it. And of course, they all include an all-band antenna. So a single antenna that goes on the vehicle. You don't have to have 2 or 3 or 4 different antennas on the vehicle, poking holes in the roof. We've got an all-band flexible antenna that we have that we sell now. So, and again, for all of our radios, we've got a train-the-trainer format that we're providing training for. So there'll be some staff in the sheriff's office and fire departments that can be selected. We'll get the training for them, and they can go back and then train their own staff in just the basic operation of the radio itself. Questions? All right, next slide. All right, so we got a better breakdown here of what we're doing at each site. As you can see, this is going to be all the specific equipment. We kind of talked about site routers and some of the switches a little earlier with Phil when we were talking about dispatch. This is a breakdown of, again, 2 site routers, 2 switches at each site, upgrading the 4 base radios, the GTR 8000s at each site. Of course, expanding our combiners. We got a backhaul router as well. Most of the sites are the same with the exception of Smoky Mountain because it's your prime site. So we're going to have virtualized prime site equipment, which is the latest and greatest. Again, just like you can run a virtual server with your IT, now your prime site can be virtualized. It allows you to do a lot more in a much smaller package as far as equipment. So, because essentially it's kind of like a computer server sitting there. So, and then the Comfort RF site, again, got a little bit of different equipment there. New antenna coax, new microwave coax is required at that site. So, and then your Legion microwave relay, which is your 5th site we're leaving in place. You just got a new backhaul router there. So, and that's to connect Comfort back to Smoky Mountain. Because of that ridge that's out there, we've got to have that microwave relay that you have now. We're able to leave that in place to make sure you have that relay.
So back to Smoky Mountain there, is that so you can log in and see what's going on everywhere rather than individually, or well, I don't get what this is?
As far as what the prime site equipment is?
Yeah.
Well, the
What
prime
are they
site,
seeing when they log into that?
Well, somebody's going to log into that. Your system, because you're part of Gators, your system is automatically monitored by Motorola in Chicago. We have a knock and a sock there. So anytime there's any alarms that go off, any issues that we have, we notify the Gators network of an issue. Sometimes they know the same time we do because they're monitoring it, but it's all monitored at our knock in Chicago.
So then what function will it perform?
So the Smoky Mountain is your prime site. So as I mentioned before, that the Gators Corps sees all 4 of your sites as one site. The prime site, your simulcast prime site, is the one that has the voting in it that decides what traffic is going to go to where based on where you are and what talk group you're on. Okay, that's where the brains of the simulcast resides.
This is the trunk unit.
I'm sorry.
This is the trunk unit.
Well, it's all trunking. It's all trunking.
This is the
prime
mothership.
site.
it's all controlled.
It's the mothership for your 4 sites. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The virtualized threw me off.
Yeah, all that means is that we have the ability before, if we had to have
additional equipment in the racks, we can take one piece of equipment, one server, and put 2 or 3 operations on it and virtualize them on the same machine.
Just helps to save space.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. And again, just a greater breakdown of what your dispatch upgrades here and your master site. Your master site being located at the core itself. Your site licenses, your position licenses for your dispatch consoles. You got all your radio licenses. Your radio authentication requires licensing again. That's how it, can tell that that radio is supposed to be on the system or not. You got a breakdown of your backroom equipment. Everything is going to be in kind of what we showed in the diagram earlier. Now you've got kind of a list of how many and what it is that will all be installed there and or replaced. Some of this stuff is already currently there. It just needs to be replaced and upgraded. So, and then what's actually going to be on the dispatch floor itself. Again, specific breakdown with your, each dispatch position. And again, keep in mind that you only have 3 right now, and we're adding an additional one to give the dispatch center 4 operating positions they can use. So, and then again at the bottom we've got the remote dispatch, which works off a laptop. So you can see the first item there is a laptop. So that'll be a portable laptop that's essentially a mini dispatch console that can be carried anywhere as long as it's got that connectivity. Questions? All right, so next slide.
Well, I do have one about this laptop.
Okay.
So this is just going to be one more IP that can sign in from anywhere. Is that the purpose of having a laptop? Or?
Right, just to have a portable environment,
Right.
as opposed to like our normal dispatch consoles has a Z2 Mini HP PC, little tower sitting there.
Yeah. Right.
This is all within a laptop. The headset, the mic will all be USB if they need it, as opposed to your dispatch center where you may have the plug-in headsets underneath. More stationary fixed equipment versus I can take it and go somewhere with it.
What
It's
is it?
essentially
Does it clone an IP address, or how does that part of it work?
Yes, it's on.
Yeah.
That's
it'll have its own IP.
So there's a master list somewhere of all this stuff.
Right. That's where you get the proxy server and the firewall to tunnel back into the site.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, why it requires that specific LTE connection, you really can't just go to any network and plug it in. You're going to have a specific.
Well, I asked because we have some issues with this kind of stuff in other departments. Okay.
Understood.
Okay, understood. Next slide. All right, turn it back over to Ben.
All right. So one of the things, when we first started this project, through communication with the sheriff and others within the county, one of the things that we heard loud and clear is the reoccurring cost. Okay. So one of the things that we've tried to do in putting our proposal together is reduce that as much as we possibly can. So one of the things that you're going to see in here in our proposal is a full 5-year commitment of services to the county. What that means is it's going to include the SUA, the System Upgrade Assurance. So being connected to Gators, we do upgrades on the system every other year. Okay, we take them to the latest and greatest version. All that is done and pushed out to the individual sites with the upgrades. Sometimes we have to go on site and actually touch the consoles. As we move forward in our version, we're going to be able to do it all virtually. Today, for example, we just got finished with a upgrade at with the Gators network, and we're having to go around and touch all the consoles to get them upgraded. It's just part of the upgrade. That's a required piece of it, so that the entire Gators network stays on the same platform all the time. Okay, that's called the SUA. The maintenance and support is also included for a full 5 years. So basically what we're trying to do is give you guys a turnkey 5 years, no worry, reduce the number of sites that you have, that you're paying lease sites on, and guaranteeing for the next 5 years, there's not additional funds that you're going to have to pay for maintenance and support. Okay, any questions about that? To go through the services that we've included, the civil and permitting services that we're going to be required to put in the shelter. So any kind of permits that have to be done, we'll take care of those. Any civil work that needs to be done at the site, we're taking care of that. The structural analysis that are to be required on the roof at the sheriff's office and at the Smoky Mountain Tower to put the microwave on. So we'll go ahead and do a structural analysis of the tower to make sure that whatever additional equipment we're putting on it can hold it. Okay. Installation, configuration, testing of all 4 RF sites. Same thing with the dispatch center. We're going to sweep the antenna lines, as I mentioned before, at the existing sites. Make sure that they're all still functioning properly. Frequency coordination services. Okay, so today you guys have, you're working on 2 frequencies. We're adding 2 more frequencies. Y'all own those frequencies today. We're just going to make sure that from a implementation standpoint at the different sites, that all the frequencies are going to work well together. Okay. And important note to remember is that that's all we're using is 4 frequencies, guys.
And we have how many, Sheriff?
Right now,
Yeah.
we just have 1 frequency right now.
They have 2. They have 2 now. They're working conventional.
The county owns.
But the county owns more.
frequency, what is
Yeah.
that? No, it's 12.
Yeah.
12
licenses.
And we'll still have them.
Yes.
Yes, sir, they still belong to you.
And keep them and
Yes.
keep them current.
Yeah. Very
Because they're very, very valuable. But again, 4 frequencies is all we're going to use. We'll put all 4 frequencies at the same frequencies at all 4 sites.
We'll have 8 other frequencies.
Yes. We'll do the frequency analysis, the coordination, coverage measurements to ensure that everything's working as designed. So once we're done, we're going to go out with whoever y'all designate, and we're going to test the areas that we committed to coverage to. Okay.
When you say who we designate, you mean a county employee?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Customer site training includes the dispatch center administrator and the operators. It includes the trainer for the radios, for the portables and the mobiles. It includes the radio management for the 3 people, and it also includes what we mentioned before to reduce those reoccurring costs and those unknown costs that come up. We're going to train a designated person of the county. We're going to send them to school, to Motorola school. They're going to become trained and certified in programming of the Apex radios. When they come back here, they'll have to be authenticated by Austin and by our FSO team in Austin, and then they'll be given a system key to be able to program the radios. And that's any radios within the county that you guys are responsible for. So radio changes that you have an agency that needs an additional talk through, okay? Or you have another agency that is adding people and they want to, the sheriff's office wants to add a special unit, so they want their own talk group for that. Going in there and reprogramming those radios and adding that talk group, you guys have complete control over how you do that, because y'all have the person to be able to do it, as opposed to having to pay somebody else every time you want to make a change.
And rest assured, they will be under a non-competition agreement. Not going to train them legally.
You mentioned that you go out and test them to make sure it's working as designed. What do you do if it's not working as designed?
We fix it and make sure it is.
What is that?
That's on our dime. Our commitment to you guys is to put in a system that we've designed and we've committed to make for you guys to work the way it's supposed to.
So if we got a hole in our coverage someplace that looks like it's covered on the maps you showed us, what have you, if y'all will fix it. It's
Correct.
not on us to come up
Right.
with
So that's why we do 95% coverage, and looking at the coverage maps, those areas that are in white that you may not have coverage in, those are the ones we're going to show. If you're standing in an area that we're showing is covered, and we do several tests and it's showing there's no coverage there, yes, we're going to fix that.
So now, a lot of that has to do with height, and on the tower, the expensive real estate is at the top. So you guys have all that secured?
So we're using your sites. We're using your sites and your antennas today. So wherever they are today is the height they're going to be at.
We're not going any higher?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any questions on this? Next slide, please. Also included in the proposal, as we mentioned, the NICE logger. That was something that wasn't in there originally that they asked for, that we've included in ours. The 5-year maintenance and support that I mentioned before. The first year is warranty. So warranty starts at system acceptance. Okay, so the day you guys tell us, hey, it's working as y'all said it would, everything's good, sign off here, you start the 1-year warranty. At the end of that first year is when the 4 years additional maintenance and support that we've included are kicked in. The 4 existing microwave links that you've had, we have folded the support and maintenance of those M&I links into the 5 years. So we're going to cover your existing 5 year that we didn't install for the next 5 years for you as well. The radio management, as we mentioned before, for the programming, that's included. So radio management, because it's a cloud-based solution, there's an annual fee for that. So we're including that for the next 5 years. Okay. And then fleet mapping and code plug development. I can explain that if anybody needs to explain. So fleet mapping is basically where, because every radio in the trunking system has its own ID. Okay. Those IDs can be grouped together so that you know what belongs to who. So the sheriff's office, the fire departments, whatever, you give them a group of IDs, okay, and some expansion so that they can grow, right? So that at the console level, even though there's aliasing to where somebody keys up and the dispatcher can see who it actually is, whether it's a mobile that's assigned to a car or it's a portable assigned to a person, that ID will always show up. So if that radio is not alias to anybody, they can look at that ID if it's an emergency set off or somebody's keying up and they can't understand them, where the dispatcher can at least go and go, you know what, that ID belongs to such and such fire department. So let's contact them and find out who has that radio. Okay. So that's what fleet mapping does for you. And then the code plug development, of course, is setting up the radio with the different talk groups. So we're going to sit down and decide the sheriff's office needs this many talk groups, fire departments need this many talk groups. So we got to assign those talk groups, and then we have to build the code plug into the radio so that all those appear. And that's also about interoperability as well. So agencies that are in and around the area that you want access to their talk groups, you'll have an ILA. So the city of Austin and Gators already has this ton of ILAs between all the agencies so they can share each other's talk groups. So through the code plug development that we'll be working on with you guys is we will bring Austin into the loop because they already have those. So if y'all need to talk to Agency X who's on a trunking system next door, they can say, hey, we're going to want their primary in our radio. So they say, okay, you give us your primary and we'll give you ours. So there's an ILA between there so that y'all can share those talk groups.
You reach their dispatch like you reach a gatekeeper or something in each one of those, right? You don't just have access to talk to it.
Right, so, well, yes, for the most part, if you're doing their primaries. But for an example of that would be, say the SO has a drug counter interdiction unit, right? And they need to talk to the DEA who has radios that you can talk on. You're not going through a dispatcher then, you're talking directly to them.
So that's how you merge those talk groups?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, they'll have that talk group in their radio. Now, you can also patch them at the console. You can create a patch where you take this talk group and this talk group and you put them together so that he can stay on his radio and she can stay on hers, and when they key up on their talk groups, they still hear each other.
So who handles all those permissions and stuff? Does the sheriff have to have agreements between all those organizations?
That's strictly up to you guys how you want to set it up, but part of our job in implementing this is to help you guys get that done. And like I said, Gators has a ton of those already because of all the agencies that they handle that are share each other's talk groups.
So if he came back to you with a list, sheriff comes back to you with a list, here are the people I want, you guys just take care of it?
We'll help you take care of it. I mean, because the ILAs have to occur between y'all and them. Okay, so we'll put y'all two together to make sure.
You're gonna take care of the technical part.
Yes, sir.
And he has to negotiate with it.
The political part of it.
Yeah.
May I ask, just real quick, because that includes, like, say, Kendall County, Gillespie County, and Bandera, if they're not in your particular area, that's how we would go about being able to go from jurisdiction to each place without, seamlessly, I guess?
Correct.
Would be those?
Right.
Let me ask you a specific question. The example you just gave about she's in one car, he's in another car, and they go through the dispatcher and the call's patched through. If you have 700 megahertz and VHF, how do they communicate?
Yes, because they're both trunking. So if one of them's conventional, whole different ballgame. But as long as they're both trunking, it doesn't matter if VHF or 7-800. As long as those talk groups are in the console, the dispatcher can grab them and put them in a patch together.
So if Gillespie County is 700 megahertz and we're VHF, and you move up to Llano County, they're VHF, and you go up to Burnett County, and they're 700, and everybody's on that call through the dispatcher, everybody's listening at the same time.
So that, yeah, now you're doing multi-select.
Yeah.
So I'm taking a whole bunch of them and putting them together. And the biggest thing that I'll tell you is, yes, you can do it, but make sure it's temporary as hell. You want to get that knocked down as quick as soon as the incident's over.
And so what about the example the firefighter gave? He's got the old style radio. Can he still get in on that call?
No, because he's conventional.
So
So
he can
everybody
only talk to
would
somebody else.
have to go to the same conventional channel that he's on.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, ultimately, the long-term goal is to have dual band radios for all the firefighters.
Right. So there's
Yes.
a trickle down.
Correct.
But we're going with what we absolutely have to have initially.
Yeah.
And then be able to budget that in
Yeah.
and add those as we go along.
Yeah.
So then, if everybody goes on to the VHF, like in our case, V-Fire 21, are they still able, you know, if the chief, the incident commander, is on the local channel so that he can talk to his firefighters that are in the building, burning building, is he still able to communicate with Mountain Home and other people who are on 700? Or if it's,
Yes.
It's on multi-band radio.
so he's got multiple,
Correct.
he'll still pick up all that on the track.
There's a lot of fire departments that are in trunking systems, or that when they get on scene, they go conventional. For that reason alone. But yes, he would have the ability to communicate, yes, sir.
So command talks to everybody and
Correct.
his soldiers on the ground and talk to him
Right.
and each other.
Yeah.
The way it's set up right now with the current radio purchase, eventually when all the radios are upgraded, you don't have to have that anymore.
But they'll have invented something new by then.
Next slide.
Can you explain to the court, if we stay how we are and with the city changing, we will not be able to communicate with them, correct? If we just stay with where we are right now?
Correct. They would have to switch to you.
Yes.
Okay, because they're going on to a trunking system,
Right.
even though it's 700, but it's still a trunking system. If you stay conventional, the only way they're going to be able to talk back is they have to actually get off the trunking system and go to a conventional channel that you're on.
And the real reason that we're all having to change is because everybody's going to trucking systems.
Correct. It's just a better use of frequencies and you know, the technology is just a complete upgrade of the technology that's being used for public safety systems.
Yeah.
Bigger, better deal.
Yeah.
More expensive.
Okay, so to cover what I was mentioning before on the 2 to 5 years, I just wanted to make some note of everything this includes. This includes the incremental software enhancements. So, as I mentioned before, your system is constantly being monitored in Chicago. So, any type of bug fix that we find in a system, whether it's the Gator system or a system, state of Michigan, or a state of Colorado, or another one, we find something in that version that they're running, and we go, hey, we need to fix that. We automatically push those fixes out to all the entities that are connected to the Gator score. We do the software release updates, the SUA, as I mentioned. We do the upgrade for that. That will also include your IP logger recorder. Okay, that will stay current. Monthly security patches. So cybersecurity is a big deal. So if you look down at the very bottom of this slide here, you notice that there is a active eye managed detection and response that's included in here. Motorola in the last 24 to 36 months, we've acquired 2 cybersecurity companies. So we've engaged a higher level of cybersecurity in our networks, and not only in our LMR networks, but also to our customers to include in their SIMs if they want to. We're required to put this in our proposals now. Okay, it becomes a part of it, and it's something that our customers are asked to pay for. Because you guys are connected to Gators, and we do such a high level of cybersecurity on the LMR network, this is something that you guys can opt in or out of. If you opt out of it, then there is a small reduction in the price that you'll see. It includes standard dispatch services, system tech support, 24/7, 365 support, on-site system support. If there's something happens at one of the sites, we lose a router or we lose a switch or we lose a power supply, we will dispatch somebody out and take care of that for you. And we do the preventative maintenance and the repair and returns on the radios, as we mentioned. for the full 5
How
years.
often is it preventive maintenance?
I think right now, we're doing it at least once a year.
So an annual inspection and they sign off and you're good on this? or
Correct.
that?
Yes, sir.
And if something goes out like a router or something, y'all dispatch somebody to take care of, where are they coming out of?
Yeah.
Austin, San Antonio?
Austin? Yeah. Our FSO team, we have a FSO field service organization. We have, right now, we have five that are based out of our office in Austin who help manage the Gator network for them. So they would typically be the ones coming out. If we don't have one available, we have local shops around that we can call them and ask them to go out and do the replacement. Okay, next slide, please. Wanted to mention the ongoing and customer cost to make sure that everybody's clear on this. The Ethernet connection for the backhaul that we mentioned, if you do the one from the SO to Smoky Mountain, then you would pay for that one, and then also the connection into the core. Okay.
It's optional, but it's smart to do it.
It's optional, but it's smart to do it, yes, sir. The connectivity to the hosted core, that's the one we just talked about. The current 5 lease sites that you have, that's the 1 microwave link that you have, and then the 4 sites that are already there today. And then the last one, I mentioned this because there is, in your agreement with joining Gators, there is a cost associated with them to onboard you. So that their manpower that it takes to do the upgrade at the cores, to bring you guys in, recognize all the talk groups and everything that's required to get it set up, we're covering that fee for you with the city of Austin.
That's included.
That is included. That's part of our proposal.
Is there an annual cost after that or monthly? Or?
Okay. The 5 years is what we're
One
covering.
time?
That's a one-time fee, yes, sir. Okay, let's talk about pricing. One of the reasons the slides that we showed before that has a breakdown of every piece of equipment that's going in all the sites and everything that's going in dispatch was because that way when you see this, you understand the cost associated with it. As part of our proposal, the full proposal, once we determine all the details of what you want us to include, there will be a detailed equipment list of every piece of equipment that you're buying. There will be a list price, and there will be a contract discounted price. And then what we do and what we've done here is we combine all that together, and then we come up with an additional system discount that we provide our customers. So if you take the equipment list and total it up, it's not going to total what you see in that first line there. Okay, it's going to be higher. So I just wanted to point that out. So the infrastructure piece of this, again, which includes every piece of equipment that we've talked about, is the 1735. The microwave equipment and services, that's the 165 that if you guys would take that link out, we would remove that 165K from the proposal. All your,
So
yes, sir.
we have equipment there, we have microwave equipment, that's what you're talking about.
So this is the link that we're going to put up between the sheriff's office and Smoky Mountain. That we're going to do a structural analysis of both locations, make sure everything, do the path study, and hang the microwave for you. And make that connection between the SO and Smoky Mountain.
This is not equipment, this is the
actual microwave.
field analysis and so on.
Well, this includes the microwave equipment. We keep that separate from the infrastructure equipment.
Okay.
The consoles, all the site routers, core routers, all that stuff.
Does all the other microwave equipment stay where it is?
Yes, we're using all your existing microwave today.
Okay. So this is additional.
This is that additional microwave link we're putting in. Yes, sir. And as I mentioned before, the 4 that you have, we're going to pick up and we're going to cover those under your service agreement for the next 5 years. The subscribers, what we mentioned before, the 243 portables and mobiles that are included in here are the 1.9. Then the services, the implementation, everything, the engineering, the project management, the STs on site that have to go and connect everything together and make everything happen. Those are all the services that are associated with that. And then, of course, the out years of service and maintenance there that we've talked about, the full 5 years of coverage.
And this does include the cybersecurity service.
This does include the active eye, yes, sir. Any questions on that? Next slide, please. So just a few notes here I wanted to mention in the pricing. This includes the mobile radios for the fire departments and ones that they need today. During our discussions, they determined that they needed an additional 152 portables. If they wanted to build out and get all the radios that they need for all the fire departments, it would require an additional 152 portables. Just wanted to make sure y'all, and if you go down to the second to last bullet point, if the county so choose, one great thing about Motorola is, we're a $10 billion worldwide company, so we actually have our own financing. It's a corporation. It's separate from Motorola Solutions, but it's there for us to be able to offer to our customers. So creating things that we've done in the past are like a 0% 2 to 3 year financing, where we could get the equipment in the hands of your guys and you can properly budget over the next 2 or 3 years for those radios. So we would ship you the radios today and your first payment wouldn't be due until a year from the day that we ship, the day that you sign a contract. So it allows our customers to be able to budget properly when they need to be able to do so. Again, it includes the radio management that we've talked about, the fleet mapping. One of the things that we talked about is the over-the-air programming. We were going to include that, but the Kerr does not support the equipment required at the Zone 2 core you guys are connecting in today. And that equipment is somewhere, implementation and everything is $30,000 to $50,000. Well, there was no need for the county to pay for that everybody else can use. So we took that out for now because we believe at some point in the future that's going to become available, and when it does, we can flash the radios to be able to program over-the-air program in the future. The microwave between, like we talked about, that link. If you guys want to leave it in there, great. If you don't, we take it out and you get a discount for that. And then active eye security is the last bullet point I wanted to mention again. That if you guys want to leave it in, you can. If you want to take it out, you can take it out, and there's a little bit of savings associated with that. The last thing I want to hit on is why Motorola? Again, we guarantee the 95% coverage. That's the public safety standard. And that's what we do.
That's guaranteed.
That's guaranteed 95% coverage of what you see painted on the maps that we provide. Yes, sir. Our pricing is guaranteed. So what we've committed to you guys for the full 5 years is what we're going to provide. There's no hidden cost in here, no hidden fees of any kind in here. Our system is going to give you guys autonomous control of what you have. Okay, you own it. You take care of it. You own the frequencies. You own the system. You decide what you want to do. We're going to train a programmer for you so you can program your radios to make changes when you need to make changes. And then the secure and high reliability. Again, as the very first thing that I showed at the beginning of our presentation, we've built hundreds of these systems. This is what we do. We are public safety. I'm still a police officer. I'm retired. He's still a police officer. We care about care about the counties and the cities that we work for, because I still carry a badge and a gun, as does he. So it's important that we provide that reliability to you guys as well.
Couple clarifications.
Yes.
I know that the city is going to a 700 megahertz system with LCRA, but their EMS is still VHF,
That's my understanding, yes.
and the systems talk to one another. If we did VHF, these systems would talk to each other, and we have no problems with EMS.
Trunking.
Trunking.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And we would have control of the management of all of our sites and equipment.
That's correct.
It would not be managed by somebody else.
You're connected to Gators. You'll have it in a local agreement with Gators because you're tied to their core.
One of the things I noticed was you talk about an Astro 25, and we heard about a Zetron console. Is that just a different type of console?
Yes, so our consoles are the MCC 75. When we say Astro P25, that's a Motorola brand. Okay, it's a P25 network, we call it Astro. Our consoles are the MCC 7500Es. Zetron is another manufacturer of console. If you're wireline and you want to stay wireline, and you bring another manufacturer in, you want them to stay wireline, you have to do what's called CCSI, a console subsystem interface connection. There is a cost associated with that, and you lose features.
It's another piece of equipment added to the whole complex.
You answered all my questions. And I had a list of questions.
You go to the last slide.
Any other questions for me? Well, I'll tell you the same thing we told LCRA. We were friends going into this, and we're gonna be friends coming out of this, no matter what we decide to do. We've been very pleased with the services that we've had with Motorola. We have some hoops we have to jump through in order to be able to do this. So be patient with us, but we're beginning the process.
Great.
So thank you very much for coming.
That does bring up one question.
Yes, sir.
The prices are good for when?
So this price right now, we're calling it budgetary, because there's things, taking the microwave, Active-I out, adding subscribers, removing subscribers. Once we give you the contract, when we say, hey guys, this is what we want, give us the proposal, that pricing will be good for at least 90 days.
Well, what's the shelf life of the proposal itself?
90 days.
Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I think I would like, for the sheriff, the sheriff, to compare the two proposals on a spreadsheet, looking at both, equipment, types, all that. So it's on one thing to see what, neither one of them are going to be perfect, I doubt. So I suspect it will be advantages to one system versus the other system. As an example, the thing I hear is that the LCRA government system is better inside buildings. And I think that another meeting I was out with you, there's like an repeater or something you can put in buildings that will enhance coverage. But that type of thing is,
Pros and cons.
pros and cons of each one and comparing. And I don't know, I'll leave it up to you to how you get it done.
Now, you talking about our buildings?
I'm talking about just in buildings in general. If there's a problem at,
Hospital or whatever.
the
Well,
hospital.
see, the box stores, the hospitals, places like that have those booster systems in them. We don't have to worry about the big places. And people in their homes not gonna have that. And in the metal buildings around here, I think anybody that's telling you they're getting in the metal buildings is overselling it.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Can y'all kind of explain real briefly the difference between 700 and y'all system as far as like for our county, the way it lies, is why the VH system is so
Yeah,
successful?
So the 700-800 frequencies were adopted and given to public safety years back for mainly for the metropolitan areas because it's a higher frequency. They can penetrate buildings very well, but they can't go out as far. Okay, so in your metropolitan areas, your Houston, your Dallas, your Austin, San Antonio, they make perfect sense for them, right? Better building penetration, don't need as many sites, but you're not going to get the outlying coverage.
Which would make sense why the city of Kerrville went with that system. Smaller area to cover, more buildings within that smaller area.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
It's all one tower.
But for you
Yeah, all
guys,
one tower.
but for you guys, with the topology that you have and the area that you're trying to cover, the VHF frequencies definitely make the most sense.
Well, I've also heard that the 700 works better in flatter topography.
Sure, because well, a lot of that depends on your towers too, right? Right. In Fort Bend County, when I was there, we built a 475-foot guided tower, and we were able to cover the whole county because it's flat. So it worked great. In Houston and Harris County, not so much because of all the big buildings that they have around. So they had their system had to be designed like the City of Houston system, which was implemented in 2010, is a 54-site system for the City of Houston. Okay, so think about the number of sites that they needed in that metropolitan area was because of the building. But a lot of those sites are, they call them sites because they're in the tunnels underneath the city. but they call them sites because they're part of it as well. But again, the VHF for you guys makes the most sense just because of your topology.
Is there any preference for one system versus the other? This is really something probably more for you. One system versus the other for talking with other agencies?
Well, I think they both have the capability of talking to each other.
But
The
each
700
trunk,
each
as long as
other.
you have a trunk that you can talk to, is kind of what I'm hearing.
Correct.
So the great thing about the way the technology is moving is that, and again, the P25 standards, right? That was the whole reason APCO and the FCC came up with the P25 standards, because they wanted to promote interoperability. Motorola being as large as we are and owning the number of systems that we have, we're all at 100% in favor of that. Okay, so but what you're going to do is you're going to have specific features that you're going to get. You're going to get push to talk. You're going to get emergency. You're going to be able to see certain things, but you're not going to get the exact same thing going with brand X or brand Y, because whether it's us or whether it's Harris or whether it's Kenwood, everybody's going to do their own little flavor of things that they're not going to share with everybody, right? So, but interoperability is there, whether you're conventional, just like we mentioned before. A conventional system, everybody can go talk to them if they need to just by switching that radio. But they're leaving a trunking system to do that, versus everybody being on trunking, whether you're a VHF or 7800, those talk groups still have the ability to talk to each other.
You know, I understand DPS is on VHF.
DPS is VHF.
Are the deputies, they're already used to using Motorola equipment?
Yes. Yes, sir.
They know how to
You know, and I guess I say it's impartial for Jason, Chris, and I have 25 years of DPS. I've used the Motorola from North Texas, South Texas, West Texas, to East Texas, and it's never failed. Yeah,
use good equipment.
I mean, you pay for it, but you pay for what you get, honestly.
Well, and as a matter of fact, the public doesn't know this, there is an alternate supplier of equipment, the LCRE.
Yes,
Yes,
Harris,
sure.
Harris radios, yes.
And we went and reviewed all the testing that Motorola did, and you want to keep Motorola equipment no matter who provided the service.
Correct. You know, I don't know if Harris offers something like a fire radio, I don't know.
They do not today. So from a fire perspective, there's the new NFPA standards, NFPA 1402. There is a specific radio that Motorola has designed that needs to go through that testing, but nobody today has an NFPA radio. And we're the only ones that I'm aware of that has a fire-centric radio. That our radio that you see sitting there was designed by us with fire department people.
Sheriff, I appreciate the fact that you pretty much, the radios are off the table because both of them are using the same radios. That
Correct,
helps-
correct,
that
yeah,
helps
that's-
in the-
That's what I'm
That's-
thinking. They get a better price on them. I think the savings of all of
That'll
them.
be in the comparison.
What questions do you have for us?
Not at this point. So we're ready. Our proposal is 96% ready to go. All we need to do is you guys tell us where with microwave, what we're doing with radios, such like that. As soon as we get that, we'll be able to complete the proposal and be able to provide it.
Well, as far as the next steps, you know, we have to agree on what we have to do, whether we have to issue RFPs or how we can go about trying to approach this issue. And then we also have we'll have to schedule a public meeting because we committed to do that with the public before we obligate these firms. But I anticipate that we should be able to know whether or not we can obligate the funds probably within the next 90 days.
And if there's anything else you'll need from us, we need to come back. Any other presentations, any equipment that need to be demoed, whatever, feel free to reach out to myself or John, and we'll take care of it for you guys.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we sign on the dotted line today, do you have the equipment on hand, or is that something we'll have to wait on?
No, we'll have to wait on it.
Okay, and how long is that?
So it depends. So certain pieces of equipment that we manufacture, we're getting them sooner. Third-party switches, routers, and stuff like that, as everybody is aware of because of the supply chain issues, we're seeing things pushed out 180, 200, 250 days. What we can do to speed that process up is if you guys decide to move forward prior to, y'all say, hey, we just got this process to go through to get it, but we're gonna go with you guys, we can do what's called a pre-build, where we'll go ahead and submit everything and get it on order. Usually saves us 2 or 3, 4 weeks.
All right, thank you.
And one of the things, since Sean Motorola is such a big company, you're able to get moved in front line.
Absolutely, you know, and so are the, you know, the other manufacturers are as well too. I mean, we're definitely bigger than them, but yes, by being a global company, we get kicked to the front of the line sometimes when, you know, when we're ordering equipment, other than smaller companies. So it does give us a little bit of advantage from a timing perspective.
But
Realistically, we're seeing it all over the map today. So
from today,
Yes.
you could not possibly tell us a date when you'd have everything.
Every piece of
ready to
equipment,
be installed. And you can't start it without having everything.
we can do certain things if we get certain things, right? So, for example, if we got all the console equipment together, we could start setting those up and staging them and getting
Yeah,
them
but
ready
you
to go.
can't flip the switch.
Oh, absolutely not, no.
So nobody knows how long that would be.
That's correct. But I mean, once we start ordering equipment and we start seeing lead times, then the project manager will work with your project manager, and they'll sit down and we'll do a Gantt chart and a timeline and be able to kind of get an idea of where we're going to be as far as implementation.
As for the mobiles and the portables, you know, we can order those ahead of time. We can still install those, operate them off the current system, and then once the switch is, you know, and we will be completely operational. That's them as for radios and all that stuff. Correct. A lot easier. Motorola, you probably got a little say in Motorola radios.
Our lead time on our radios, I mean, because we build everything specific to the customer. So even our portables right now are, you know, we're looking at anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks delivery on those, just because of supply chain issues.
Go ahead and get that one person trained, I would think, you know, like.
It definitely gives us time to get that done as well, yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate the time.
That's all we have on our agenda, and we are now adjourned.